Hey guys, welcome to this new video about why I don't need a 2.8 zoom lens. I have the Z50 in my hands with a 24 to 70mm f.4. That's my, this was my first lens I brought with the Z6 and I'm completely satisfied with it. It's a very nice lens. I will make a little review about it in a few weeks. But today we want to talk about another topic. I would just want to start with a little experience time. I already mentioned it in a few videos. Before I brought the Z6, I had a Canon 750D with a Tokina 11 to 60mm 2.8. And then after that I brought the Nikon and I just have the 24 to 70mm f.4 right now as a zoom lens. I have two prime lenses and this zoom lens. But do I miss the 2.8? Yes, I know it's APS-C and full frame. The APS-C is a Canon, and it's also a different, let's say, focal length. But to be honest, I have two scenarios where I use the 2.8 on the APC camera on my old Canon. That was one time as I shoot the Milky Way in the Harz Mountains, and the second time was in similar scenario. I shoot on my way to a location. There was in the Harz Mountains are much dead trees, especially in the national park. And there was a very nice full moon and some stars, and I make some shots there. There I really used 2.8. I was happy to have it. But is it very, do I really need the 2.8? That's a question you have to ask yourself. In my case, I don't need it, and I will explain you why. And I have to look on my notes because I have 1.5 sides of Word document again to not forget anything. So what is the main difference? F.28 to 4.0. 4.0. But this is just an aperture. What are the effects to have 2.8 and f.4? The effect is, I just made a little scenario right here. When I close the aperture it was a prime lens where I tested it, to 2.8, then I have these settings. Shutter speed 180 and ISO 100. When I now close the aperture to f.4, with the same settings, I have underexposure of 1 stop. So my photo would be 1 stop underexposure. To correct that, I have to higher the ISO to 200 or to lower the shutter speed to 125. So that would be the corrections. To put it in other words, the 2.8 have a better low light performance, definitely. But I don't have the prime lens here. But prime lens would be even better low light performance because 1.8 or 1.4. So think about that. Another thing is, I just want to mention that for the Nikon 24 to 70 is a 2.8 version out, but I never had it in my hand, so I cannot talk about that. I just had 4.0. But do I really need it? Would I say, I really need the 2.8 and I would sell the f.4 and borrow the 2.8? No. Because in my case, as a wedding photographer and videographer, and also as a landscape photographer, but mainly right now and focus on wedding photography and wedding photography and videography. I never used a zoom lens. Why? Because prime lenses are better. You have a nicer bokeh, you have a more open aperture, you can make more creative and better photos with it. You have just so many more options. Yes, you have to move, and that can be a disadvantage, especially in scenarios when you are like when the wedding ceremony is and you are in a church or outdoor or wherever it is. With a zoom lens, you can just stand at 1 or 2 meters away, or maybe also 3. You can zoom in and you can get nearly everything. Maybe you have to move a little bit. But with a 50mm or 35mm, you have to move many times backwards and forwards, and that can be maybe a little bit disturbing in the ceremony, but you get better photos. Definitely. It does not look like when you, for example, when you shoot with 4.0, you cannot have a very nice bokeh. So the background is not as unsharp with the 4.0 as it would be with the 1.8 prime lens. So it's also a difference to 2.8 against 4.0. So 2.8 would be have a nicer bokeh than 4.0. What is the next point? Yes, that would be better. So landscape photography. In the case of landscape photography, my main photography style or photography thing I do, there are very, very few cases you really need 2.8. I already mentioned when you are night photography or astrophotography or something like that, some really special landscape photography things where you really need low light performance. Then it can make sense to buy a 2.8 zoom lens. But have in your mind, you can also buy prime lens. Prime lenses are cheap, or I come a little bit later to that. What I have mentioned is the Tamron I used, the 2.8 Tamron for my Canon I used 3 years long, and right now with the 4.0 24-70 I have 2 years long, and like I said before already, I never have a moment where I said, hey, I really need 2.8. I never had that. So, do you really need 2.8? That's the question. I have I made some information up based on the 2.8 and the 4.0 version of the Nikon 24-70. The 2.8 is heavier and larger than the 4.0 in this scenario. Also, when I zoom it out, that would be the 4.0 zoomed out on 70mm, and that is on 24mm, and that is completely zoomed in, but you cannot take any shots. The 4.0 has a weight of 500 gram, and 2.8 is 805. That can make a difference. This case is the Z50, and with 70mm is, it's okay, but you can see the weight is a little bit too much in front. So I would take it with the second hand. Here 35, it's completely okay with one hand, but 24 would be also okay, but not perfect. With the 2.8, it would be much more difficult to have it just in one hand on a Z50. On the Z6 is much better because the camera is heavier. Another thing is also the 2.8 Nikon is much more expensive. It costs 2,000 euro, and this one, the 4.0 version, costs around 850 euros. So nearly 1,200 euro difference, and that's a lot. With 1,200 euro difference, you can buy, I don't know, 2 prime lenses, or this one and a prime lens, that would be possible. So really think about that. And yeah, I already said it. Do you really need it? When you are focused on a very specialized field like astrophotography or night photography, or maybe also animal photography, then it could make sense. Because there you really need low light performance, and you want this one more stop in your camera, that you have a little bit more freedom. You can lower your ISO. That would be, that can be the case. I know some animal photographers who really need the 2.8 telelenses. They don't buy the, I don't know, 4.5 or 5.4 aperture telelenses, because they would be cheaper, they would be lighter, but they really need the low light performance, because they are shooting in the morning or in the dark, and then it really comes to low light performance. So do you have this case? Then it could make sense to buy the 2.8 or a 2.8 zoom lens. But in many cases it does not make sense. So I believe 90% of the people don't need the 24-70 2.8. They're just, it's just enough to have the 4.0 version. It's lighter, it's heavier, it's, I would not say easier to use, but easier to handle. Also with APS-C lenses. And really think about that. Really think about, do you really need it? Maybe it's better to invest in a prime lens and a zoom lens, and save a little bit of money. 2 lenses against 1 lens. It's not say one very good lens in 2.8 to 2 good lenses on prime lens, and it's more about, do you need it or do you don't need it? So really think about it. In my case, I would say 4.0 and a prime lens. It's the best thing you have. When you need zoom range, you have a zoom lens. If you need an open aperture for portraits or maybe night photography or something like that, you have the prime lens. That would be a perfect combination. Which prime lens you need, that depends also on you, but this is also a thing for another video. So, to wrap it up, thank you very much. Write down in the comments what is your opinion about this topic. Do you really need a 2.8? Do you maybe have 2.8 zoom lens? And it would be interesting why you bought it. So write down in the comments, and thank you very much for watching the video, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.